My name is Peter Ray Filacio. I go by Peter Ray with the music business pretty much now. I'm a musician and been a musician for many, many years and come from a family of musicians. Born in Salem, Massachusetts in 1945. My life in Massachusetts was great. I grew up in an ethnic Italian neighborhood, people holding their head out the window and screaming at each other, but everybody in a good mood, and it was a really very cool environment to be brought up in. I had an uncle too that was a policeman. He was the first Italian-American policeman in Salem, Massachusetts, and he used to come around and take me in his cruiser, and when they just first got the two-way radios, that's how long ago it was. And he was like my hero, and my dad also was my hero, but in a different way. My dad had this trio, and he said one day he was going to rehearse with his band in the living room, and I walked in the rehearsal. I don't know how I did it, but I took his trombone out of the case and I assembled it, and I went out and I started jamming with his three-piece band. They just laughed because I guess I was hitting some right notes and stuff. And then he knew I could sing, and I learned this little song called Barefoot Days. So we ended up performing the Paramount Theater in Salem. For the whole town must have showed up, a couple thousand people there and stuff. And I was kind of like the star of the show. I was only 5 or 6 years old, and I did an imitation of Jackie Gleason at the time, Away We Go. So I hammed it up, but I really didn't think much of it because everybody in our family was kind of an entertainer. I left Massachusetts, which was a very dense population, and tenement houses in our neighborhood and stuff like that, to this, this was more wide open and everything, and it was kind of a culture shock at first. You know, everything's new here. It looked like the Wild West to me. Kind of missed the neighborhood at first, and I missed the winters at first. But believe me, I got smart and didn't miss that after a while. I grew up and then came out here and was involved in music and school and stuff, and choirs and things like that. Met some of my very good friends that I've kept through life in my junior high school choir. And then I went into the Army shortly after I graduated, which wasn't that long after Kennedy got killed. Right. And I was very patriotic, and I felt like my brother went, my uncles went, they were in World War II, my brother was in Korea, and I felt it was my duty to go in the service. So I had no qualms about going in, and I went in, did my 2 years, and I got my first gig when I was in the Army at Fort Bragg Army Officers Club in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and boy, that was great, getting $50 a night when I wasn't even hardly making that a month in the Army. Well, I got out of KP because I had the gig at the Officers Club, and I asked my officer in charge at the club, they had a captain that was in charge, I says, you think it'd be all right, you know, if I could get out of KP, could you help me out on that? Little did I know I was breaking the whole thing with chain of command and all that stuff. I didn't come from a military family. I had no idea that I was committing a mortal sin, but I found out when he held my Army band orders back and gave me my Vietnam orders. The colonel came in from the Army band and said, we want you in the Army band, and he cut me orders. But that lieutenant that was the head of my company that didn't like me held those orders back. And he even told me he held them back. Well, I was a helicopter parts requisition specialist, and I really never did anything like that. Once in a while I took a couple flights in helicopters, but the stuff that they taught me to do, I never even performed that job. I filled a lot of sandbags. Culture shock a little bit, you know. But I kept myself really, really busy. Like first I got a job and I worked in Roar Corporation and shipping and receiving, and I hated that. But then I started getting connections for doing gigs. First it was a little coffee house, one night stands. Then I was playing in the cocktail lounges on the weekends in Point Loma and places like that. And all of a sudden, just it was like a steamroller. And then I got, a year after that, I got a female partner, and we went up to LA and played the Troubadour and the Ice House and all these famous coffee houses. And we opened up concerts for the Moody Blues, Janis Joplin, Steve Miller Band, and all these huge groups and stuff. So between 1967, 1975, my music career was on fire. My first big hit was the Dago from Diego on the Homegrown album. And it wasn't even meant to be a hit. It was kind of like a novelty song that I sang in clubs. But they had this contest going on at KGB radio. They said, anybody wrote something about San Diego, send it into the station. We're doing an album and it's going to be called Homegrown. So they picked it for the Homegrown album. This was an acceptance letter to the first Homegrown album. It says your song is set to the grooves of Homegrown 2. And the KGB sent me this letter, congratulations, And my first royalty check, I think, was for $7.85. And this was, I think, the first duo I had that did lounges in '68 and '69. We went under the name of Peter and Jonathan. Kind of a typical 60s thing. Hoyt Axton was a big influence on me, and I got to open up for him at a coffee house in San Diego here called the Candy Company. And also Jackson Browne played there. The Eagles, before they were the Eagles, they were a duo, Glenn Frey and J.D. Souther. Now J.D. Souther wasn't a member of the Eagles, though he did write for them, but Glenn Frey, of course, was a primary member. And they played there as a duo, and I used to go over to Jack Tempchin's house, songwriter here in San Diego that wrote Peaceful Easy Feeling for the Eagles. And we'd play till 5 o'clock in the morning, and smoking joints and exchanging songs. What a great time we would have over at Jack Tempchin's house. And this is the girl that I played with, Anita, the beautiful blonde that we opened up, Janis Joplin, and opened up for lots of groups with. And when we went and did an audition, we never missed an audition, and I attribute it to the fact that she was so beautiful. This black guy here in this picture, who did some percussion for me, he was from the Virgin Islands, and his name was Boomba. That was his stage name, but his real name was Raphael Hendricks. And he talked like very low in this very good accent like that. And he was the coolest guy in the world. We met in a club in La Jolla that I was playing. He asked me if he could jam. He came in with his bongos and played, and we hit it off so well we never stopped being friends. Because the very same night we found out we were born on the same birthday. So that even bonded us more, My first wife was a school teacher, and I met her when I was playing at a really cool club in Marina del Rey called the Randy Tar, which means the horny sailor in old British slang. And it fit because this place brought in all these beautiful, lovely stewardesses, and international stewardesses, and then, of course, followed all the businessmen from L.A. in their fancy suits and everything else. So it was a real love factory, and we'd play there and just packed the place. Yeah. And it was great, but I don't think anybody ever listened. They were more, I think, busy scheming on each other. But it was a fun gig, and I met my first wife there. We did songs in the studio with studio musicians before I even signed my recording deal. They came out so well because I had a few contacts that I made in the radio business here in San Diego, because for a short time after I got back from Vietnam, I had a sales job selling airtime for a station called KPRI. It was the first underground station in California, Southern California, that played hippie music. And I became kind of a favorite guy of theirs, and then when I told them I didn't want to do it anymore because I wanted to dedicate more time for music, they really understood and they followed my career. And actually, the program director is the one that I brought those tapes to that I did in the studio up in LA, and he fell in love with them and he put them on the air right away on 2 stations. This is the playlist with You're Just a Flower on it. It was listed right next to Pink Floyd, the Doobie Brothers, all on that same playlist. They saw this and they almost fainted. You know? How did you get airplay? You know, and I said, well, you got to ask. And from that point on, it was like a steamroller. I mean, when I came back, and they started getting the paperwork ready for me. I signed a 5-year recording deal for 5 albums with $35,000 front money, which they don't even give anybody front money. That was a tremendous amount, but 1,000 was quite. And things just started rolling. They came out with a full-page ad on the back of Billboard listing all the artists that were coming out of Barnaby Records, and I was at the least on the ad. And Peter Filacio coming out with an album too. So that was a big day in my life. And then right after that, I went to a wedding. Our executive producer was getting married, and he invited all the artists and stuff because he was the executive producer of my record and also the executive of the whole record company. And people at the wedding ranged from George Harrison, Waylon Jennings, Sally Fields, the actress. I mean, I can go on and on. I can't remember half of them now. Yeah. But just huge names, Ricky Nelson, all these people in the record business that were just the who's who. And so I got a chance to rub elbows, sitting on a rock next to George Harrison, passing a joint. You know, and it was only one day in my life, but I'll tell you, I'll never forget it. What happened was the new law came in to make the rich richer, of course, and you could now take and subdivide your corporate into different little sections. So MGM at the time had a recording division, division for movies, division for Las Vegas entertainment, all this stuff. And that was all in their entertainment division. Well, instead of going bankrupt in all the other money-making ones, the movies and stuff like that, they just took the music part of it, decided to go bankrupt in that, and everybody was left in the lurch that worked for them. I ran back to the record company where I had my publishing done. I wanted to get some copies of the tunes that they had, you know, put down into sheet music and stuff like that. They're moving furniture. When I arrived at the record company that I was signed to, a day after bankruptcy, they were moving furniture out of the place. And I ended up getting a few copies, and I tried to get my masters, like recordings. I couldn't get them, you know. So that was kind of a bummer, you know. I got copies though, so, you know. I stayed in LA and I had different gigs at various steakhouses, and I went back to the Ice House. I think I played a stint there, and stayed up for maybe another almost year. But things started getting really thin in the gigging, because about that time music started changing. They were going less for the singer-songwriter acoustic player and more for bigger bands. Then later it evolved to disco. And boy, that really made me feel like an archaic, dinosaur. And it was a shoe that didn't fit me, but I mean, not that I didn't enjoy a couple disco songs, sure, but it wasn't a steady diet for me, that's for sure. Yeah, things started after the bankruptcy, and things got really thin in the music business, and I didn't feel like I was earning my keep, and I didn't want to be mooching off a wife. We didn't have any kids, and one day she had a few too many wines, and basically kind of told me she was hoping that I could support her in the mode that she was accustomed to, like the kind of life her father gave her. Well, I said, well, I'm not quite ready for that. I didn't say it at the time, so I made some other plans. Came back to San Diego. I get a call one day, and this guy that was involved with some of my music decided to do a movie, and he hired me to do a movie soundtrack. And the movie soundtrack, first it was called Full Circle Productions, but the name of the movie was Nothing to Lose, which came actually from some of the lyrics of the song that I wrote. And a friend of mine was in the movie. He was my contact of getting the audition to do the soundtrack. And so I got some experience in doing movie soundtracks, and that was great. It was a feature-length movie, but not well put together. It did go to a film festival, though, at Cannes, in Europe, yeah. Went to the film festival and got some pretty good reviews, but it didn't turn into anything commercial, so, when you're not making any money, you disappear into the word. Yeah, I mean, I literally came back and lived with my folks for a while because I was dead broke. And they lived next door to these professional clowns. And we just came out one day and posed with the clowns in our driveway, me and my dad. Oh, my dad was just a character, a wonderful man. He played on my 2 songs. He played on the second one that I did for the album called Itchy Feet. And he played a beautiful mandolin solo on it. And then later on we did I Can See the Point with horns and everything. And he played a nice lick on that too. But then I got back into some more club gigs and stuff, formed the Dago Band, and we played the Monterey Whaling Company in Mission Valley and some of the nicer places in town that had live entertainment. And so I kept, I kept my fingers nimble and stuff, playing the guitar, and kept on playing and made a living at it as much as I could for as many years. I still enjoyed people, calling me out of the blue, saying, hey, I got your homegrown album. I hear you're doing a gig over here. I'm going to come by and bring the album. Would you sign it? Things like that, It's always a good feeling. But pretty much the good money started fading in the mid-'80s. Well, the late 80s was starting to get into some times where I went through some sorrow with losing my best friend Michael that was in that junior high school choir with me, and ended up going to Vietnam, and we ended up seeing each other after he got back from Nam and I was already back, and our friendship became really solid, and we were just the best friends for so many years. When he died at such a young age, for really a result of PTSD, it just ripped me apart. And it started something, because it wasn't long after that my mother passed away, and then my father. Losing your parents is one thing, and you can't replace it, no way, and once, especially losing a mother and everything. But when you lose a friend that's young and one of your peers, and it's in a way, it's almost harder. This is the song I wrote for my very best friend Michael, and it's very simple. Just 2 acoustic guitars and a bass.
Well, Michael believed in a price that you pay to be free. Like so many then, left his home for land across the sea. And when he returned to a homeland that called him a fool, seemed like fighting for nothing. It made him feel empty and cruel. And they were singing, love, 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 give peace a chance. Seems the war never stops when you're fighting a meaningless cause. It's like the kid that gets punished for believing in Santa Claus. And the world never stops, and the people remain the same. Some keep fighting for nothing, and living and dying in vain. And we keep singing, love, 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 give peace a chance. Well, Michael, my hero, my brother, you're finally gone to a place where someone as good as you are can live on. And the world never stops, and the people remain the same. Some keep fighting for nothing and living and dying in vain. Still we keep singing, love, 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 love. I said, love, 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 give peace a chance.
No, music life it's a wonder, and I do it just for the joy. Occasionally I've had people say, would you like to do this gig and that gig, and if it turns out it's going to be a big lot of work and too much stress, I pass on it, because I can do anything that I want now and just do it for the joy of it. And I prefer playing in small venues, because that's where I started playing, is in coffee house, small cocktail lounges, at places where you can make contact with the audience. And I enjoy that venue the most. I probably would have said, well, you don't lose faith. You can still do these small venues and still write songs and do your albums and stuff, but you don't have to worry about doing those big concerts and traveling all the time and putting yourself under a tremendous amount of stress, because making a whole lot of money is not the answer. Are you happy? Are you being productive? Are you being creative? And as a musician, that's what you want to be. That kind of sums it up too. Music gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. Thank you, Mr. Pluto. Actually Plato, but I call him Pluto.
Well, I'm walking, yes, I'm walking, got them 6 strings by my side. I'll be leaving San Diego, but I got my reason.